leader will have to stick to this, but we're hopefully bringing it on track.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll try and speak loudly.
In just a minute, I'll be lower. Probably really need to speak up.
I'll try and talk.
Thank you.
If y'all can't hear me, just give me a little sign and I'll speak a little bit louder. I'll come a little bit closer.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the Court. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my name is Mike Berry, and I have the honor of representing Gawker Media, Nick Denton, and A.J. Delario. As Judge Campbell has told you, we're all going to be here for a few weeks. So I'd like to introduce you to the people that will be here with me throughout the trial, while we're here in court, all of us here together. First, you met Michael Sullivan last week during voir dire. We're joined at counsel table today by Paul Saphir, another attorney at our law firm. I'd also like to introduce Mr. Greg Thomas from the law firm of Thomas and Cicero in Tampa. He'll be with us throughout the weeks as well as a colleague of his, Rachel Fugate. I'd also like to introduce Celine Humphreys, who's sitting next to Mr. Thomas. Ms. Humphreys works at a law firm in Tampa called Brannick and Humphreys. Next to them is Tim Piganelli. Tim will be working with us throughout the trial, going to be helping us make things work smoothly. Work smoothly for me, but more importantly, hopefully, make things work smoothly for y'all. Before I begin, I want to just share a little bit about myself. Last week, Mr. Sullivan, well, he already told you that I have bad handwriting. Sadly, it's been a problem of mine since I was a young child. And today, you get to hear from the young guys. You got to hear from Mr. Vogt. Now you get to hear from me. My wife and I have 2 children. We have a daughter who's 12. We have a son who's 8. Over the past few months, I've been telling my kids, Daddy's going away for a trial. They were sad. I was sad. But we talked. And like all kids would do, they asked a lot of questions. They asked me, why do you need to go away? They asked me, what is the trial all about? Why is it so important? They asked me, why do you need to be away for so long, Dad? To each child, I gave a different answer. To my son, I said the case is about a famous wrestler, a man that I looked up to as a boy. To my daughter, I talked about the privacy, about the internet. Like all parents, like all fathers who have preteens today, these were things that we'd obviously talked about before as a preteen growing up today. But because of their age, I couldn't say much more. I couldn't get into the details of this case. Today, I would like to begin to tell you what this trial is all about the evidence that you will see over the next few weeks, about why this trial is important, why you will all be here together for so long. This morning, I'd like to begin to share with you the answers to my kids' very simple questions. The answer that I'll give them when they come of age. The answer that I will give them will be based on the facts. Not my argument, not Mr. Sullivan's argument, not the slant or the spin that we as lawyers are going to put on it. Mr. Sullivan and I, during the course of the trial, will let the facts speak for themselves. Over the next few weeks, listen to those facts. Look at the facts. Look at those facts for the answer to those questions. To begin to answer the questions, I need to introduce you to a couple more people, my clients. First, I'd like to introduce you to the President and General Counsel of Gawker, Ms. Heather Dietrich. You'll see Ms. Dietrich with us each day, sitting at counsel table, working with us, arm in arm. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Gawker Media's founder, its CEO, the man you saw on the screen before, Nick Denton. As you will hear, Mr. Denton started Gawker Media in 2002. It began with a technology website, a website called Gizmodo. That site put Gawker Media on the map, and it remains its most popular site today. But, as Mr. Boat told you, Gawker Media publishes a whole family of other websites, sites focused on everything from sports to women's issues, from video games to cars. This case, as you've already heard, involves one of those websites, a website called Gawker.com. That website focused on the media, focused on entertainment, it focused on celebrities. Finally, I'd like to introduce you to my client, A.J. Delario. Mr. Delario grew up in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, just a short ways outside Philadelphia. He graduated college with a degree in communications and went to work as a journalist. Over the years, he covered a number of beats, worked for lots of different varieties of publications. For Mr. Delario, for Mr. Denton, for Gawker Media, the story of this case began about 3.5 years ago, back in late September 2012. By that time, Mr. Delario had worked for the company for about 4 years. First, he was the editor of its sports website. Then, he became the editor of Gawker.com. As you will hear, in late September 2012, Mr. Delario was contacted by a man named Tony Burton. Mr. Burton is a talent agent in New York City. He represents TV and radio personalities. Mr. Burton told AJ someone had anonymously contacted one of his clients. That unknown person had a video that they wanted to send to Gawker. Mr. Burton told AJ that the video was connected to the Hulk Hogan sex tape story, a story that was already in the news. It had no return address label, but it did have a 30-minute video inside, the Hulk Hogan sex tape. Now, in a few weeks, you'll hear evidence that shows we know a number of Hogan was. Hulk Hogan, the real American hero. A man who's not like regular civilians. A larger-than-life figure who has been in the national consciousness for decades. The evidence will show that Hulk Hogan has been a famous wrestler since the 1980s. Back when I watched him on WWF as a boy, growing up in Georgia and Alabama. For me, that's when Hulkamania was really running wild. He's appeared in movies. In Rocky III, he was Thunderlips, the ultimate object for 4 seasons. He has written not one, but 2 autobiographies. Throughout this time in the spotlight, he has discussed his personal life in a variety of ways, on a variety of topics, and in a variety of contexts. Whether it was his steroid use early in his career or his first marriage to Linda Hogan later on. In fact, as the evidence will show, he's talked about private things, deeply personal things. Things like the affair that he had with another woman during his marriage to Linda. You also hear that Linda wrote a book called Wrestling the Hulk, My Life Against the Ropes. That book, this book right here, it also talked about their personal life. And it accused Mr. Bollea of being unfaithful. And the evidence will show that Mr. Bollea talked publicly about things even more intimate than that. Things like his sex life. Over the next few weeks, you will see, you will hear evidence of him talking in the media about his sex life, talking to people like Howard Stern, sharing intimate details in a way that's part of the reason that I can't talk about this case in detail with my kids. The second thing that Mr. Delario knew when that package arrived was that the Hulk Hogan sex tape was already big news. It was national news already. It wasn't particularly news that he had been following closely, but other media had. In March of 2012, about 6 months before Mr. Delario received that DVD, TMZ broke the news about a Hulk Hogan sex tape. Immediately, Mr. Bollea and his lawyer, Mr. Houston, went on TMZ's television show for an exclusive interview. Mr. Bollea, appearing as Hulk Hogan, told TMZ that he did not know who the woman was. As he put it, the truth is, it wasn't just one brunette. I was running pretty wild there for a few months. For his part, the lawyer, Mr. Houston, he joked that he was relieved that the sex tape did not show Mr. Bollea with a guy. Mr. Bollea laughed as TMZ's reporters joked about the thong-shaped tan line they had seen him sport on that tape. The evidence will show that the next month, in April 2012, 5 months before Mr. Delario received that DVD, the tape made news again. A website called The Dirty published screenshots, still photos from a Hulk Hogan sex tape. With those images from the tape, now widely available on the internet, the media began to speculate. Who was the woman in the video? Could it have been the wife of Bubba the Love Sponge Clem? As you all heard last week, and you heard Mr. Vogt just a little bit ago, Bubba is a shock jock. Might be called Todd Clem to some people, but he changed his legal name. He changed his legal name to Bubba the Love Sponge. And Bubba, as you've heard, was Mr. Bollea's longtime friend, his best friend. You heard Mr. Vogt talk movingly about the depth of those two men's relationship. At the time, Bubba the Love Sponge was married. He was married to a woman named Heather. They have since divorced. In May 2012, about 4 months before Mr. Delario received that DVD, the sex tape made news again, this time in the National Enquirer. The Enquirer quoted sources who said the sex tape was the reason for Bubba and Heather's divorce. The Enquirer reported that Bubba had set up cameras in his house to catch Heather cheating and to catch Heather and Mr. Bollea in the act. The third thing Mr. Delario knew Paris Hilton and Kim Kardashian. Mr. Delario knew that celebrity sex tapes had become a cultural phenomenon by 2012. Often, the celebrities would protest. But as Mr. Delario knew, the public often wondered if the sex tapes were some sort of publicity stunt. When Mr. Delario received that DVD, it answered some questions, some basic questions from the previous press coverage. Was Heather Clem really the woman with Mr. Bollea? What did Bubba the Love Sponge know about all this? How did Mr. Bollea wind up having sex with his best friend's wife in that bed? But Mr. Delario also found the ongoing public interest in a Hulk Hogan sex tape amusing, almost comical. He wondered what it said about the public's fascination with celebrity sex tapes. And so, Mr. Delario decided to write a commentary addressing those things. You will see that commentary. You will have an opportunity to read it, not just see highlighted passages, but read it. See what Mr. Delario said. In that commentary, Mr. Delario noted the prior reports on TMZ and on The Dirty, how like other celebrity sex tapes it had been stealthily circulated, in quotes, and how Mr. Bollea claimed that he had been, quote, secretly recorded. He noted the rumors that the woman was Heather, and then he described how Bubba Clem appeared to be in the room at the time, encouraging his wife and Mr. Bollea to, as Bubba put it, do your thing. Mr. Delario commented that if this is true, Bubba has no problem sharing his wife with his best friend, thus shedding new light on the Hulk Hogan sex tape story. And Mr. Delario commented on the public fascination with celebrities and celebrity sex tapes, talking about how often they are less than glamorous. Even the title reflected this tension. Even for a minute, watching Hulk Hogan have sex in a canopy bed is not safe for work. But watch it anyway. The tension between the public both wanting to watch and not wanting to watch. Mr. Delario's commentary began by talking about that tension, by noting that some Americans love to watch famous people have sex. He commented that these people who like that were shameless voyeurs, writing that after watching those sex tapes, those people, quote, come away satisfied that when famous people have sex, it's closer to the sex that we as civilians have from time to time. Meaning, as Mr. Delario continued, it's hardly ever sexy, the way we expect it to be sexy. As Mr. Delario put it, celebrity sex is incredibly dull. Mr. Delario's commentary compared this celebrity sex tape with earlier celebrity sex tapes that had captured the public's attention. He provided links to images from those previous tapes. Unlike the glamour that America seemed to lavish on those tapes, the tapes of Kim Kardashian, of Paris Hilton, of Pamela Anderson, Mr. Delario wrote that what he found this whole thing to be, well, he found it to be ordinary. And, as Mr. Delario will testify, that ordinariness was particularly striking, even amusing, because the latest celebrity sex tape did not feature one of these beautiful young actresses. Instead, it featured an aging Hulk Hogan, a larger-than-life character who was once the real American hero. Now, as Mr. Vogt told you, along with that commentary, Mr. Delario posted brief excerpts from that DVD. During the trial, you will have an opportunity to view those excerpts. You will see what they are, and you will see what they are not. Watch it. Take up Mr. Vogt's offer. Watch what was posted. Gawker did not post the entire video. Gawker did not post the Hulk Hogan sex tape. You will hear that the video that Mr. Delario received was 30 minutes long. But it wasn't like other celebrity sex tapes on the internet. The footage was black and white. It was dark, grainy. Certainly wasn't in HD, certainly wasn't any close-ups. Mr. Delario will tell you that he sat and he watched the full video. He knew what it looked like, and he knew what was on it. He knew that there was no point to being gratuitous. You will hear that Mr. Delario knew to use only as much of the video as was necessary. As you will hear, that is precisely what Mr. Delario did. You will hear testimony that Mr. Delario directed Gawker's video editor to find clips that illustrated the unglamorous nature of the video. Mostly it's conversation, not sex. He wanted a highlight reel, just like in his sports reporting days. A highlight reel of those unglamorous moments. A highlight reel that would complement the point of his commentary. The video editor, a woman named Kate Benner, she edited the video down. She edited it down to 3 minutes. Mr. Delario went back to her and he asked her, edit it some more, to make it even shorter. And so she did. Ultimately, the excerpts that Mr. Delario decided to post lasted 1 minute and 41 seconds. Again, take the opportunity to watch the video. It included around 9 seconds of sexual activity. The rest was conversation. Ordinary conversation. Because the excerpts mostly showed this conversation, Mr. Delario asked Ms. Benner to add subtitles. And that was it. That was the short video Mr. Delario posted to accompany his commentary. A video that underscored the point of his commentary. Over the next few weeks, watch that video, read that commentary. Now that we've talked about what the evidence will show, about the prior public interest in Mr. Belea's personal life, about the interest in the Hulk Hogan sex tape, and about Mr. Delario's decision to comment on those topics and post excerpts about that topic and with his commentary, now that we've covered those things, I should say a few words about the DVD that Mr. Delario received. As I mentioned earlier, Mr. Delario did not know and does not know where the Hulk Hogan sex tape came from. And there's quite a lot that we do not know about the tape. There are only 3 people who know for sure how Mr. Belea found himself in that bed with his best friend's wife. There are only 3 people who know for sure how this came to be recorded. And there are only 3 people who know for sure whether Mr. Belea knew about the camera in the Clem's bedroom and whether he knew he was being taped. Those 3 people are Mr. Belea, Bubba the Love Sponge, and Heather Clem. It is our hope that you will hear from all 3 of them, to hear each of their stories. You will hear some of that testimony live. You'll hear some of it on video. And when you hear that testimony, when you listen to the statements that each of them have made, you will hear different stories. You will hear evidence that Mr. Clem has said that Mr. Belea knew that the Clems had surveillance cameras inside their house. You will hear that Mr. Clem said that Mr. Belea knew he was being recorded. And you will hear Mr. Clem has said that this is a publicity stunt. In that regard, the evidence will show that after Gawker posted the excerpts, Mr. Belea talked about the tape in the national media, talking to Howard Stern, to the Today Show, to TMZ, all about the sex tape. Now let's talk about another reason we're here. Mr. Vogt alluded to it. Money. As you will hear, Mr. Belea is asking for lots and lots of money. You will hear testimony about whether Gawker benefited from posting the video. And you will hear testimony about why Mr. Balea claims that he should be awarded millions and millions of dollars in economic damages. Please, listen to this testimony carefully. Listen, look, but also look at Mr. Delario's post. Hold it in your hands. You will not see any ads. You will not see any promos for products. You will not see anywhere something to click to go buy something. As you will hear, there's a simple reason for this. Gawker's advertisers, they don't like their ads to be next to stories like this. They want their ads next to stories. Stories about new technology products. Stories about a new video game. Stories about a new car. So as you will hear, Gawker has a procedure that made sure there were no ads on Mr. Delario's post. There were no ads because that post had been tagged not safe for work. And thus you will see that Gawker did not make any money directly from this post. The evidence will show that in October 2012, the very month when the Hogan post went up, Gawker.com's revenue, its revenue, the website's revenue for that entire month, for all posts, every single one of the posts they posted combined for that month, less than $100,000. So that brings us to the last part of the evidence that you will hear and the answer to my kids' questions. And that evidence goes back to the discussion that Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Turkel started with y'all last week. The discussion about internet, privacy, about technology and our freedoms, about what I plan to tell my children when I talk to them about this case in the coming years. The last part of the evidence evidence we have. Why does Gawker Media publish a commentary with excerpts from a tape if it doesn't make any money from it? Here, I need to tell you about the one defendant I haven't talked about that much. Nick Denton, the man who founded Gawker Media. Not just the man who is on NBC. You'll hear that man, and you'll hear him talk about some of those same things. And as you will hear in this courtroom, in this trial, Mr. Denton was born in England. His father was English. His mother, she was from Hungary. She was a Jew who survived the Nazis. She then escaped the Soviet occupation when she was just 18. Mr. Denton grew up with parents who had seen firsthand what happens when speech is suppressed. After graduating from Oxford, Mr. Denton became a journalist. He worked for a London newspaper called the Financial Times. He wrote for The Economist. In the mid-1990s, Mr. Denton moved to San Francisco to cover technology companies at the start of the tech boom for the Financial Times. He later moved out to New York City. In 2002, he started the technology website I mentioned earlier, Gizmodo. And in the following years, he launched an array of other websites. He ran that entire operation out of his apartment until 2008. Over the years, Mr. Denton's company started a number of websites. Some succeeded, some didn't. In October 2012, the company had 8 websites. They are Gawker, which we've been talking about, a site originally devoted to covering media and entertainment. Had Deadspin, a site centered on sports, where A.J. Delario was once its editor. Lifehacker, a website with all sorts of tips and tricks for self-improvement. Jezebel, a site dedicated to women's issues. IO9, a website that contemplates life in the future. Kotaku, a place for people interested in video games and video gaming. Gizmodo, a site focused on emerging technology. Jalopnik, a site about cars, a place for car enthusiasts to go. Together, in 2012, the year the Hogan Post went up, those 8 websites published a total of over 100,000 posts. Media is not beholden to these elites. Mr. will tell you that he wants the public to have the truth, the simple, unvarnished truth. And he wants people to know, he wants readers to know that they are going to get the truth when they choose to go to Gawker's websites. The evidence will show that Mr. Denton and the writers at Gawker believe that in telling the truth, in telling that truth, images are often the key. That's the way it is in this multimedia world we live in today. People are cynical. They often doubt written accounts. For Gawker's writers and their readers, pictures, videos, documents, those are the things that are the best proof of what is the truth, what actually happened. So, as the evidence will show, when there were rumors that Rob Ford was abusing drugs, Gawker got photographic proof that he was smoking crack cocaine, and they shared it with its readers. When NFL football star Greg Hardy beat up his ex-girlfriend, Gawker was able to get photos of the woman taken right after the attack. They published them, showing her beaten and badly bruised. These stories and others that you'll hear about during the course of this trial influence the public discussion. As the witnesses from Gawker will tell you, their stories cut through the spin. They cut through the publicists, and they provide the public with the truth, the unvarnished truth, the unvarnished facts about public figures. But this case isn't about other public figures. This case isn't about a Gene Simmons sex tape. This case isn't about the picture of this celebrity's penis or that celebrity's breasts. If so, if it were about those things, this would be a very long trial indeed. The plaintiff will talk to you about those things. But at the end of the trial, Judge Campbell will instruct you on the law, and she will tell you what this case is about. As you will hear in the coming weeks, you will hear testimony. Each post has its own unique facts. Each post presents different circumstances. And what this case is about, the reason we are here, is one post, one celebrity, Mr. Balea. The evidence will show that Mr. Balea has spent years telling the public why he is a role model. For decades, Mr. Balea portrayed himself as the all-American hero. As Hulk Hogan, he had the famous tagline that Mr. Delario and I knew as children: train, say your prayers, eat your vitamins. Later, he showed a softer side, a family man who loved his wife, a man who wrote in his autobiography, "I'm not the cheating kind." And then, as the evidence will show, Mr. Delario got a DVD that showed something different. He wrote a commentary about it, and he posted the short video excerpts to illustrate that commentary. In the coming weeks, you will hear that Gawker believes this kind of reporting is important. They believe it's important for writers to be able to address uncomfortable subjects, whether the subject is mental health, whether the subject is drugs, or whether the subject is celebrity sex tapes. And as you will hear, Gawker believes it's important to have many different voices. And just as you saw in Mr. Vogt's opening statement, you will often see those voices. You will see one of Gawker's websites expressing one point of view, You will see another Gawker website expressing a different point of view. You will see one of its writers saying this is his opinion, and another writer saying this is her opinion. At Gawker, you will hear they think that's a good thing. To them, that represents the marketplace of ideas, which is what our freedoms are all about. As Mr. Denton would say it, the ability to speak our mind, to be informed, and as you will hear from Gawker's witnesses, to make the choice, to turn the channel, or never to click on Gawker's websites. As you will hear, Gawker recognizes that not everyone will like everything on each one of its company's websites. And as you will hear, Gawker's okay with that. You will hear that Gawker wants to wants to give people the option to log on, to read, and to see. When people come to Gawker, as you will hear, the company wants them to find Gawker's posts speak the truth. They make a point, and they are interesting. The evidence will show that that is what Mr. Delario did when he wrote his commentary and posted those short excerpts. The evidence will show that Gawker believes that telling people the truth and commenting on that truth, even about those uncomfortable subjects, even when those uncomfortable subjects involve celebrities, even when those subjects involve celebrity sex tapes, it's important and it's lawful. That is the beginning of the answer to what this trial will be about and what the evidence will show. That, ladies and gentlemen, will be the defendant's proof. Thank you.
Please come back at 1 o'clock. So remember, during the lunch break, the rules still apply, only what matters here in the courtroom. So please don't talk to anybody about the case, not even each other. And we'll see you back here at 1 o'clock in Deputy Commander's regular meeting. Thank you all very much.